In 1925, you could sit down at an SS Kresge lunch counter, spin once on a chrome stool, and eat a full hot dinner for a quarter. By the 1950s, more than 15,000 items filled a typical store, and the busiest spot in the whole place was the counter at the back where a girl in a paper cap ran the grill. Number 14 on this list was so cheap that Kresge served it by the thousands every single day, and almost no American under 60 has ever tasted it. Number 3 made the whole store smell like a bakery by 10 in the morning. And number 1, the simplest thing on the menu, is the meal people still write about in old hometown forums decades later. These foods fed a country. Then we walked out the door and never looked back. Hit that subscribe button and let us count down the 25 forgotten Kresge lunch counter foods nobody serves anymore. Number 25, corn sticks. Before a basket of dinner rolls became standard, the Kresge counter sent out hot corn sticks with nearly every plate lunch. These were little ears of cornbread baked in a cast iron pan shaped like miniature corn cobs, ridged and golden, pulled from the oven in the back and brought out still warm. They cost the store almost nothing. A scoop of cornmeal batter, a hot greased mold, 8 minutes near the flame, and you had bread that looked like it took effort. The outside crisped into a thin shell, while the inside stayed soft and faintly sweet. You broke one open, watched the steam rise, and dragged it through gravy or chili or the last of your creamed peas. A whole order came free with a 25-cent plate. Nobody thought twice about it. Today you cannot find a corn stick pan in most kitchens, and the bread that anchored a million weekday lunches has simply vanished from the American table. Number 24, the Blue Plate Special. This was the meal that made a dime store feel like a real restaurant. For a quarter in the 1930s, climbing to around 60 cents by the late 1950s, the Kresge counter put down a full hot dinner on a single divided plate. Roast turkey with dressing and cranberry sauce, creamed potatoes, buttered peas, a lettuce and tomato salad, a corn stick, and a pat of butter, all for one low price chalked on the board. Kresge bought turkey by the truckload because the company snapped up farm surpluses cheap, which is why turkey showed up on the board year-round, not just at Thanksgiving. A working man could eat like it was a holiday on his lunch break. The waitress called the order down the counter in shorthand, the cook plated it in under a minute, and you ate elbow to elbow with strangers who were eating the exact same thing. The Blue Plate Special was the heart of the counter. When the counters closed, it died with them. Number 23, salmon croquettes. On the days the counter ran a fish special, the cook reached for cans of pink salmon, and what came out was something better than it had any right to be. The salmon was drained, the soft little bones mashed right in, then bound with cracker crumbs, a beaten egg, grated onion, and a spoonful of mustard. Shaped into patties or cones, rolled in crumbs, and fried on the flat top in grease until the outside crackled deep gold and the inside stayed moist and pink. 2 croquettes came with creamed peas spooned over the top and a wedge of bread for under 30 cents. The calcium from those soft canned bones was a quiet bonus nobody talked about. Children who swore they hated fish cleaned the plate. Salmon croquettes filled diner menus and church cookbooks from coast to coast until canned tuna got cheaper and salmon turned into something you ordered at a white tablecloth restaurant. The counter version is almost completely forgotten now. Number 22, the patty melt. Before the fast food cheeseburger took over, the Kresge griddle turned out a patty melt that put it to shame. A thin beef patty, smashed flat and seared hard on the flat top, layered with sweet grilled onions and a slice of cheese, then pressed between 2 slices of rye and grilled in butter until the bread went deep brown and the cheese ran out the edges onto the hot steel. The cook scraped up those crispy cheese lace bits and tucked them back against the sandwich. The whole thing came off the griddle hissing, cut on the diagonal, and served with a pickle spear and a pile of fries. It was a burger and a grilled cheese arguing over who got top billing, and somehow both won. A patty melt and a coffee was a complete lunch for pocket change. Diners still make a version, but the dime store patty melt, smashed and griddled by a counter girl who made $200 a day, is gone. Number 21, tuna salad on toast. Long before tuna was a sad desk lunch, it was a hot counter special. The Kresge cook mixed flaked tuna with mayonnaise, diced celery, and a little onion, then mounded it onto toast, and, on the deluxe version, draped a slice of American cheese over the top and slid it under the broiler until everything went bubbly and golden at the edges. That was the toasted tuna, the dime store ancestor of the tuna melt. Served open-faced, with a scoop of cottage cheese or a handful of chips alongside, it cost less than a sandwich at a sit-down restaurant and felt twice as fancy. The contrast was the whole point. Cool, creamy filling, hot, crisp toast, the salty pull of melted cheese. People remember the cheese crackers that came with the tuna salad at 100 different counters. It was humble, it was cheap, and it has quietly disappeared from American lunch counters almost entirely. Number 20, creamed chipped beef on toast. The Army called it something unprintable. Everybody else called it SOS and ate it without complaint. Thin slices of dried, heavily salted beef were torn into ribbons and folded into a thick white sauce made of butter, flour, and milk, then ladled hot over squares of toast. The saltiness of the beef seasoned the whole sauce, so the cook barely needed to add a thing. The toast went soft underneath, soaking up the cream gravy until you ate it with a fork. Every veteran who came home from the war had eaten this on a base somewhere, and they recognized it on a dime store menu board instantly. At the Kresge counter, it was breakfast. It was a cheap lunch. It was Tuesday. A plate cost a couple of dimes and stuck to your ribs until supper. Today, creamed chipped beef survives only in military nostalgia and a few stubborn diners. The counter that served it to millions is gone. Number 19, chicken a la king on toast points. This was the counter dish that felt like luxury but cost like a bargain. Diced cooked chicken simmered in a rich cream sauce with mushrooms, pimentos, and green peppers, then spooned, steaming over crustless toast cut into neat triangles called points. The pimentos gave it little flecks of red, the mushrooms gave it body, and the whole thing looked like something you would be served at a hotel banquet. Kresge, like every dime store counter, leaned on it because it stretched a small amount of chicken across a lot of plates and used up yesterday's roast bird. A working woman on her lunch hour could order chicken a la king and feel, for 30 minutes, like she was somewhere finer than a 5 and dime. The dish was everywhere from the 1920s through the 1960s, on counters, at church suppers, in cafeterias. Now it sounds like a punchline. Back then it was the closest a quarter could get you to elegance. Number 18, the EGG salad sandwich. Of all the cold sandwiches at the Kresge counter, the egg salad was the quiet workhorse. Hard-boiled eggs, chopped fine and folded with mayonnaise, a little mustard, salt, and pepper, sometimes a whisper of celery for crunch, spread thick between 2 slices of soft white bread and cut into neat triangles. It cost the store almost nothing. Eggs were cheap, the counter always had them, and it sold all day long to shoppers who wanted something light. Wrapped in a bit of wax paper or served on a plate with a pickle and a few chips, it was the sandwich you ordered with a cherry Coke when you did not want anything heavy. Pale yellow, cool, and creamy, it tasted like somebody's mother had packed it. Egg salad still exists, but the dime store version, made fresh behind the counter in a big steel bowl every single morning, was a daily ritual that ended when the counters did. Number 17, the fried bologna sandwich. Every counter in working-class America knew this one, and Kresge was no exception. A thick slice of bologna, notched at the edges so it would not curl into a dome, laid flat on the hot griddle until it blistered and browned and swelled in the middle. The smell pulled people 3 aisles over, slapped on to white bread with yellow mustard, maybe a slice of cheese. It was a hot meal, not a sad cold cut. Men ate it after a shift. Kids ate it after school. It cost almost nothing because bologna was the cheapest meat in the case, and frying it made it taste like something special. The edges went crisp, the center stayed juicy, and there was no shame in ordering it because half the counter was eating the same thing. Today, a fried bologna sandwich is a novelty item people post about online. At the Kresge counter, it was just lunch. Number 16, the triple-decker club sandwich. When you wanted to feel important at the dime store, you ordered the club. 3 slices of toast stacked into 2 stories. Bottom layer, turkey or chicken with lettuce, tomato, and mayonnaise. Top layer, crisp bacon. The whole tower cut into 4 triangles, each one speared through with a frilly cellophane toothpick to hold it together, and arranged around a little mound of potato chips or a pickle fan. It was the most architectural thing on the menu, and it cost maybe a third of what a real restaurant charged. People remember the club sandwiches at downtown lunch counters the way they remember a good movie. You ate it slowly, pulling the toothpicks one by one, feeling like you were somebody. The triple-decker club still shows up in old-school diners, but the dime store club, frilly toothpicks and all, was a small daily luxury that vanished with the counters that built it. Number 15, the BLT. Bacon, lettuce, and tomato on toast sounds too simple to be forgotten, but the dime store BLT was a specific and now vanished thing. The counter girl laid strips of bacon across the flat top until they were properly crisp, never floppy, toasted the white bread on the same hot steel so it picked up a little of the grease, then built it with cool shredded lettuce, a thick slice of summer tomato, and a heavy swipe of mayonnaise, cut corner to corner, served with chips and a pickle, washed down with a fountain Coke. The magic was the contrast nobody bothers with anymore. Hot, salty bacon against cold, crisp lettuce, the toast still warm. It was a summer sandwich made when the local tomatoes came in because Kresge bought produce from nearby farms, and the counter actually cared whether the tomato was any good. The BLT lives on, but the dime store version, griddled and assembled in front of you for under a quarter, is a memory. First pattern break. Here is what people forget about these counters. The food was only half of it. The other half was the soda jerk, the kid in the white paper hat and apron who ran the fountain like a performance. He pulled the carbonated water with one hand, swirled syrup into the glass with the other, snapped the spoon against the rim, and slid the drink down the marble to you without spilling a drop. He knew the regulars by their orders. He flirted with the girls and showed off for the kids. The counter itself was the social hub of the whole downtown, a place where office workers, shoppers, teenagers after school, and old men nursing a coffee all sat shoulder to shoulder on swivel stools. There was no drive-through, no app, no plastic. There was a person who made your food in front of you and called you by name. That is the thing we actually lost. Not just the recipes, the room. Number 14, the hot turkey sandwich with gravy. This was the open-faced wonder, sometimes called a turkey Manhattan, and it was one of the most ordered plates on the whole counter. 2 slices of white bread, laid flat, piled with sliced roast turkey, the entire plate then drowned in hot turkey gravy and topped with a scoop of mashed potatoes that got its own ladle of gravy. You ate the whole thing with a fork and knife because there was no picking it up. Kresge served this by the thousands because turkey was cheap surplus and gravy stretched it forever. It was warm, heavy, and deeply comforting, the kind of meal that filled you up on a cold afternoon for around 50 cents. The hot beef version worked the same way with roast beef and brown gravy. This was the platonic ideal of dime store comfort food, and almost no one under 60 has ever eaten one. When the counters closed, the open-faced gravy sandwich went with them. Number 13, the bowl of chili. Long before chili came in a can stamped with a celebrity's face, the Kresge counter simmered a pot of it every day. Ground beef, beans, tomato, chili powder, and cumin cooked low until it thickened, then ladled into a heavy bowl and topped with a handful of oyster crackers or a square of cornbread. On a cold day, it was the first thing to sell out. The counter also ran what people called a chili size, a hamburger patty on a plate buried under a ladle of that chili and a blanket of shredded cheese and chopped onion eaten with a fork. A bowl cost a couple of dimes and warmed you from the inside out. It was made in the back, not poured from a can, and the recipe lived in the cook's head, never written down. That daily pot of counter chili, tended by a woman who had made it 10,000 times, simply does not exist anymore. Number 12, the Coney dog. Kresge was born in Detroit, and the Coney was Detroit's gift to the dime store counter. A natural casing hot dog that snapped when you bit it, tucked into a steamed bun, then smothered in a beanless beef chili sauce, a stripe of yellow mustard, and a handful of diced raw onion. You ate it leaning forward over the plate so the chili did not land in your lap. It was fast, it was messy, and it was glorious, the perfect thing to grab when you only had 15 minutes and a couple of coins. The counter cook could build one in seconds, which is exactly why it sold so well to shoppers in a hurry. In Detroit, the Coney became a religion, but the dime store version put it in front of millions of people in towns that had never heard of it. Today, you have to seek out a dedicated Coney shop. The counter that introduced it to Main Street America is long gone. Number 11, the cherry phosphate. Here is a drink that ruled the fountain for 50 years and then evaporated. A phosphate was made with flavored syrup, carbonated soda water, and a few dashes of acid phosphate, a tart, slightly mineral solution that gave the drink a sharp, puckering bite that plain syrup and soda could never manage. Cherry was the king of them, a deep red glass of fizz that was sweet and sour at the same time, far more interesting than the flat sweetness of a bottled soda. Chocolate phosphate ran a close second. The soda jerk built it to order, splashing in syrup, working the lever for the carbonation, stirring it with that long spoon. It cost a nickel. The acid phosphate is the secret nobody remembers, the very thing that made the drink special. And once dime store fountains closed, it vanished so completely that most people today have never heard the word. Second pattern break. Here is the part nobody likes to say out loud. These counters did not fade away gently. They were killed, and the company that killed them was S.S. Kresge. In 1962, S.S. Kresge opened the first Kmart. a giant discount store built around self-service, fast checkout, and rock-bottom prices. The whole model depended on volume and cutting anything that slowed it down. A lunch counter needs cooks, waitresses, fresh produce, dishwashers, and a kitchen, and it earns thin margins on a bowl of chili. So as Kmart took over, the counters got squeezed out, replaced first by a snack bar selling popcorn and ices, then by nothing at all. The same thing happened at Woolworth, Grant, and Newberry. Fast food chains and convenience stores finished the job. Within 20 years, the lunch counter, once one of the biggest restaurant operations in the entire country, was simply gone, traded for a cart selling hot dogs near the exit. We did not lose it by accident. The company that fed us decided we were not worth feeding anymore. Number 10, the EGG cream. This is the drink with the most misleading name in American history because there is no egg and no cream in it. An egg cream was milk, carbonated soda water, and chocolate syrup built in a specific order so it foamed into a frothy white head on top of dark, fizzing chocolate. The trick was technique. You poured the milk, shot the seltzer in hard against a spoon to whip up the foam, then drizzled the syrup so it sank through. Done right, it was light, cold, fizzy, and chocolatey all at once, a drink you could not buy in a bottle because the foam was the whole point and the foam died within minutes. It was a working-class fountain staple, cheap as anything, a few cents for something that felt like a treat. The egg cream survives in a handful of old New York spots, but the dime store counter that served it to the rest of the country has been gone for 2 generations. Number 9, the Cherry Lime Ricky. The Lime Ricky was the fountain's grown-up drink, a holdover from the days when adults wandered into soda shops because they could not get a real cocktail. Fresh lime juice, squeezed right into the glass, a pour of syrup, and a long stream of cold seltzer, stirred and served over crushed ice. The cherry version added cherry syrup and a couple of those bright maraschino cherries on top, turning it ruby red and just sweet enough to balance the sharp lime. It was tart, fizzy, and genuinely refreshing in a way no canned soda has ever matched, because the lime was real and squeezed to order. People who grew up with it talk about watching the soda jerk squeeze those limes like it was a magic trick. When home refrigerators and bottled sodas took over, the Ricky faded, and when the counters closed, it disappeared almost entirely. A few bars have revived it as a mocktail. Almost nobody serves it at a counter anymore. Number 8, the Purple Cow. Some fountain drinks were pure childhood joy, and the Purple Cow was the best of them. Grape soda poured over a scoop of vanilla ice cream, the cold cream foaming up into the fizzing purple until the whole glass turned the color of a bruise and frothed over the rim. It was a float, but the grape made it electric, and the name made kids order it just to say it out loud. The vanilla softened the sharp sweetness of the grape into something smooth and creamy, and you ate it with a long spoon and a straw, racing to finish before the ice cream melted into purple soup. It cost a dime, maybe 15 cents. The Purple Cow delighted children at fountains all through the 1930s and beyond, and then it simply stopped being made. The root beer float survived. The Purple Cow, its weirder, more colorful cousin, got left behind on the dime store counter where it was born. Number 7, the Green River. Before lime soda came in a plastic bottle, there was Green River, and at the fountain it glowed. It was a bright, almost supernatural emerald green lime soda, syrup, and carbonated water mixed by the soda jerk into a glass that looked like something out of a cartoon. Tart, sweet, and intensely citrusy, It was a Midwestern favorite that became a fountain icon. The drink grandparents still love introducing to wide-eyed grandkids just to watch their faces when they see the color. At the Kresge counter, it was a nickel of pure novelty, the most fun-looking thing on the board. Kids begged for it because of the color alone. The flavor delivered, sharp and limey, nothing like the muddy fountain colas. Green River still exists in a few places, mostly bottled now, but the experience of watching a soda jerk build that glowing green glass right in front of you on a marble counter is something that died with the dime store fountain. Number 6, the malted milk. The malt was the milkshake's richer, more grown-up sibling, and the fountain made it better than any machine ever has. A real malted was scoops of ice cream, cold milk, flavored syrup, and a heaping spoonful of malted milk powder blended on the green spindle mixer until it was thick and frosty. The malt powder gave it a deep, toasty, almost nutty flavor that a plain shake never had, a complexity that turned a sweet drink into something rich and complicated. It came in the tall fountain glass with the leftovers still in the metal mixing tin, set right beside it so you got every last drop. A chocolate malt was the order of choice for a generation of teenagers on a first date. The malt powder is what made it special, and most modern shake shops have dropped it entirely. The thick, malty, hand-spun counter malt is one of the great forgotten pleasures of the American fountain. Third pattern break. Here is the genius nobody appreciated at the time. The Kresge counter ran on one principle, that a person should be able to walk in with almost no money and walk out fed and happy. A nickel drink, a dime bowl of chili, a quarter dinner. The whole operation was built so that a shop girl, a school kid, a railroad man, and a banker could all sit at the same counter and afford to eat. Nothing on the menu tried to impress you with how expensive it was. It tried to impress you with how good it could be for how little. The food was made fresh from local dairies and nearby farms by people who did it all day, every day, and got fast and good at it. We traded that for drive-thrus and frozen patties and self-checkout, and we told ourselves it was progress. But there was a kind of dignity in a place that fed everybody well for a handful of coins, and we have not really replaced it. We just stopped expecting it. Number 5, the hot fudge sundae. When you wanted the counter to feel like a celebration, you ordered the hot fudge sundae, and it arrived in a footed glass dish like a little trophy. 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream, a ladle of real hot fudge poured over the top, so warm it sent threads of steam into the cold cream. A cloud of whipped cream piped from a canister, a scatter of chopped nuts, and the obligatory maraschino cherry crowning the peak. The contrast of hot and cold was the entire magic. The fudge firmed up where it hit the ice cream, going chewy at the edges, while the center stayed molten. You dug your long spoon down through every layer to get a bit of all of it in one bite. A sundae cost a dime or two, an affordable splurge for a kid who had been good while their mother shopped. The hot fudge sundae survives at the few real fountains left, but the everyday dime store version is a vanishing memory. Number 4, the banana split. The banana split was the showstopper, the most extravagant thing the Kresge fountain could put in front of you, and ordering one felt like a genuine event. A banana sliced lengthwise and laid in a long boat-shaped dish, cradling 3 scoops of ice cream, traditionally 1 vanilla, 1 chocolate, 1 strawberry. Then the works. Hot fudge over 1 scoop, strawberry over another, pineapple over the third, the whole thing buried under whipped cream, sprinkled with nuts, and finished with cherries. It was almost too much for one person, which is exactly why couples shared 1-2 spoons leaning over the same dish. It cost more than a sundae, but still came in under most restaurant desserts, a big, affordable indulgence. Kids saved up for it. The banana split lives on at ice cream parlors, but the version built behind a dime store lunch counter, where you watched the soda jerk assemble that whole towering boat by hand, belongs to a world that closed its doors. Number 3, the cream pie. Kresge counters were famous for their pies, and the cream pies were the crown. Coconut cream, banana cream, chocolate, and the lemon meringue with its towering swirl of browned peaks. These were baked fresh, often right on the premises, which is why the whole store could smell like a bakery by mid-morning. A slice came on a small plate with the meringue still holding its shape, or the cream still cool and silky under a drift of whipped topping. The crust was flaky. The filling was thick enough to hold a clean edge when you cut into it, and a slice just about a dime. People who grew up going to the counter remember the pies above almost everything else, the whoop of them spinning slowly behind the glass, the impossible choice between the coconut and the lemon. Baking fresh pie on site was the thing that set the dime store counter apart from the burger chains that replaced it. When the counters closed, the daily fresh pie went too. Number 2, the hand-mixed cherry Coke. This was not a cherry Coke from a machine, and that is the entire point. At the Kresge fountain, the soda jerk pulled plain carbonated water and Coca-Cola syrup, then added a measured shot of cherry syrup and stirred it by hand, building the drink in front of you, glass by glass. Sometimes a couple of real maraschino cherries went in on top. The result was sharper, more cherry forward, more alive than anything that ever came out of a fountain gun, because a person was tasting and adjusting it for you. It cost a nickel, climbing to a dime, and it was the drink that went with everything on the menu: the egg salad, the grilled cheese, the chili. Generations of teenagers met at the counter over a shared cherry Coke. Manitowoc residents still remember the Kresge counter as famous for exactly 3 things: pie, grilled cheese, and cherry Cokes. The machine version we drink now is a ghost of the hand-mixed original. Number 1, the grilled cheese. At the top of this list is the simplest thing the counter ever made, and the one people remember most: 2 slices of soft white bread, a couple of slices of American cheese, the whole thing buttered on the outside and pressed onto the hot flat top until the bread turned deep golden brown and the cheese melted into a single molten layer that pulled into long strings when you took a bite. The counter girl made hundreds a day, scraping the griddle clean between batches, and somehow each one came out perfect. Cut on the diagonal, served with a pickle, a handful of chips, and a cherry Coke, it cost about 20 cents, and it tasted like being taken care of. People order it now because they are really ordering a memory of a Saturday downtown with their mother, of a swivel stool, of a counter that no longer exists. Across 1,000 old hometowns, the grilled cheese and a milkshake at the dime store counter is the taste people reach back for when they want to feel 10 years old again. It was the cheapest thing on the menu. It is the thing nobody forgot. Here's my challenge. The next time you make a grilled cheese, do it the counter way. Real butter on the outside, low and slow until it is truly golden, cut on the diagonal with a pickle on the side. Stir a little cherry syrup into a cola and call it lunch. Then tell me in the comments which one of these you would bring back if you could. The hand-mixed cherry Coke, the hot turkey sandwich, the purple cow, the fresh pie. Because these were never just cheap meals at a dime store. They were a place where everyone could afford to sit down and be fed well, and we let it disappear. Your grandparents ate here. Now you know what they lost.